So, I don't even know where to start at this point. This video is such a stark contrast to all the other content that's gone up this week about the Battlefront announcement. I've been having so much fun with the Battlefront and just Star Wars content in general. Feel like that love for Star Wars gaming has kind of come back, and then out of nowhere we've got some absolutely terrible news. So I'm going to break down all of the news for those of you guys who just haven't heard about it yet, and then after that there will most likely be quite the rant, so strap in for a long one. If you're watching with kids or if you are young yourself, I'd probably recommend to click off this video because I'm an Aussie and Aussies like to swear when we get angry, and it's fair to say I'm pretty damn pissed off at the moment. So keep that in mind, but without wasting any time, let's get stuck right into it. Now, I'm going to read an article here from Insider Gaming. This is from Tom Henderson, who has reported on the news from today. This is all also confirmed by EA themselves, but he's kind of got it summarized here in a nice way to read. The article says, EA has cancelled Respawn Entertainment's first-person Star Wars game, which Insider Gaming previously reported was based on Mandalorian Bounty Hunter. The news comes as part of a company restructuring, which will see 5% of its workforce laid off and a reduction in developing games of licensed IP. As a part of this move, the Mandalorian game has been cancelled. EA has been moving away from licensed IP for a while, first rejecting the idea of a Star Wars Battlefront 3 in favour of more Battlefield content, and more recently it decided to move away from FIFA and form EA Sports FC. On Battlefront 3, which was pitched sometime in 2020 to 2021, one source said that the project wasn't greenlit by EA due to the licensing fee, and that's where it ended. Understandably, the move comes as a major shock for those working on the project, which already had several levels and a vertical slice complete. According to sources, the game would see the player take control of a Mandalorian bounty hunter who would travel across the galaxy to capture bounties. Sources described the game as very fast-paced, and such will reward players who play in this style. For example, the player's health will mainly regenerate based on successive kills. So, as it was summarized in that article, as you can see, EA has done some pretty big layoffs. They are not the first. This is, I don't know how many there's been this year, but there's been around 7,000 employees laid off in the gaming industry this year. It's been an absolutely terrible year for that side of gaming, and obviously first and foremost, it just sucks to see even more people getting laid off. It sucks for us that, you know, oh, I don't get to play my Star Wars game, but people's livelihoods are at stake here. And I've seen people yesterday from the Sony layoffs who, one guy said he's got a 3-week-old kid and now he's just lost his job. So this is obviously terrible news, and that is far more important than the game itself. So I really do feel for all those people affected, but obviously on the content side of it, we are here to cover Star Wars games, and so we do have to talk about the negative side of the actual game itself. Now, it seemed like just last week we actually got the reports that this was going to be a Mandalorian game. We've known about this Respawn shooter for about 2 years now. I think it was January 2022 that they told us they were making a few more Star Wars games, that being Jedi Survivor, the Bit Reactor real-time strategy game, and then obviously this game that has now since been cancelled. Now, the first thing to say is that the next Jedi game is not at risk here, at least not yet anyway. So they are still making the next Jedi game, even though they've pretty much said they're moving away from licensed IP. So that's at least one good bit of information here, that we don't have to worry about never getting a sequel to Jedi Survivor. We will be getting that unless something drastic happens. So that is at least one good thing, but obviously on the downside, we have now lost what sounded like a really cool game, and I was a little bit annoyed that it was most likely not going to be multiplayer, but I guess that doesn't even matter at this point because they are just absolute spuds over there, and they've now just gone and cancelled the game. Now, shout out to my boy Mark, otherwise known as Split Screen. He also shared this in our work Discord. There's a screenshot from an article that I actually couldn't find, so I'll just show it in here. But it says, as we've looked at Respawn's portfolio over the last few years, what's clear is the games our players are most excited about are Jedi and Respawn's rich library of owned brands. Knowing this, we have decided to pivot away from early development on a Star Wars FPS action game to focus our efforts on new projects based on our owned brands while providing support for existing games. Now, this is where we get into the little rant section of this video, because I'm going to be honest, in what absolute fucking universe does any IP from EA themselves, other than probably FIFA or EA Sports FC as it's now called, and probably Apex Legends, maybe a game like The Sims for example. What other IPs do they possibly own that they think is bigger than fucking Star Wars? For a bit of context as to how well the EA Star Wars games have sold over the years, EA themselves confirmed that Battlefront 1 and 2, the EA versions, sold over 33 million copies combined. That information is also 4 years old, so it's probably around 35 million now, because obviously people would have bought those games now that they're on sale and stuff like that. And so that is just one of the franchises that they've done, which has sold, yeah, roughly around 35 fucking million copies. We then have Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, both absolute successes. Jedi Fallen Order was nominated for Game of the Year. It sold absolutely shitloads of copies. And Jedi Survivor, although it did launch with a few like technical issues in terms of the performance and stuff like that, that game was absolutely phenomenal, and it did also sell very well. I don't think it sold as well as Fallen Order, but it definitely sold very well nonetheless. And then on top of that, they've also released Star Wars Squadrons, which, yeah, was a smaller game, but I think they even said themselves that the game outsold what they expected it to, not by anything crazy or anything like that. I think it was around 20% more copies than they expected, which is still not much, but that was obviously a much smaller kind of niche game. And so, yeah, those are the 5 games essentially that they have released, both Battlefront games, both Jedi games, and Star Wars Squadrons, and essentially all of them have been absolute successes. That makes me sort of question who the fuck is making these decisions when essentially some of their biggest selling games in the last, say, 10 years or so have been Star Wars games, and now they're sort of saying, oh, we think players want other games from Respawn from their owned IPs. The only other IPs that they owned, as far as I'm aware, is freaking Titanfall, which I'm pretty sure they just cancelled a Titanfall like spin-off game last year. So they don't even have confidence in their own IPs that they own, and yet they're saying we're going to focus on those IPs. It seems as though they don't even know what they're doing. They're saying one thing and then doing the absolute opposite of that thing. It also kind of annoys me when they say that what's clear is the games our players are most excited about are Jedi and Respawn's rich library of owned brands. I'm gonna be honest, to anyone from EA, and I mean the higher ups who would be listening, I think the actual developers at those companies are probably on the same page as me, but to the higher ups, how can you act as though you know anything about what players want? Your company is beyond out of touch. I'm sure you guys know of Battlefront updates. He actually summarized it so perfectly before with this tweet. He took a screenshot and it says, EA is undertaking the move in part due to what it perceives to be a rapid shift towards large open world games, massive communities, and live service games. And Elliot pretty much said along with that tweet, we asked for open world and or live service Star Wars games. They cancelled both. They start making Star Wars single player games instead, then cancelled them, saying they need to make open world live service games. You can't make this up. That is what I mean when I say that they are out of touch. They have absolutely, genuinely no fucking clue what they're doing. They literally said, I don't know how many years ago now, that they thought single player gaming was dead. People absolutely fucking roasted them for it. And now if you look at most of the big games out there, they're all single player big games. Look at how successful 2023 was for gaming, and most of those games were single player games. Then they came out with their own single player games as well. In the Jedi series, they did objectively, financially very well. And now they're saying, oh, we think single player games fucking suck and we're going to just not do them, and we're going to go back to live service games, which is what they originally moved away from due to their own PTSD with the way that Battlefront 2 launched, and it had all those issues, and I think they genuinely just got scarred by the way that that game launched. So they are literally just going in circles at this point. They're very obviously clueless. The higher ups who are making these decisions, I'm certain they're very good businessmen when it comes to just doing general day-to-day business. They have absolutely zero fucking clue about the gaming industry whatsoever. The fact that in that tweet that I just shared from Elliot, he highlighted the section that said they're moving to what it perceives to be a rapid shift towards large open world games, massive communities, and live service games. Are you fucking stupid? Have you seen a game called Suicide Squad that came out this year? In fact, as I'm recording this month, that was an absolute astronomical fucking fail because it was a live service game. How they think that going in that direction again, saying that they want to make open world games, and therefore in the same sentence they're saying live service games, that leads me to believe they're probably going to try and mix both together. They're going to do some bullshit open world game that's got a fucking battle pass and all this nonsense, and they actually think that that is going to be successful. I can essentially guarantee, and I'd put fucking good money on this, whatever that game is that they're talking about, that will be a genuine bust and more people will lose their jobs, because these higher ups just have no idea what they're actually doing. They see the trends, they see, oh, Fortnite's a fucking live service and it's doing really well, let's just do that. Elden Ring a few years ago was really good, that's an open world game, let's do that as well. And they just fucking cherry pick from all these other games that actually are good games. It's not because they're a live service. Elden Ring wasn't good because it was an open world game. It was good because it was a fucking good game. It is literally as simple as that. Open world games can be successful. Live service games can be successful. The reason that those games are successful is because they're fucking good, not because they are that type of game. So the fact that they have deleted essentially this Respawn shooter, which, might I add, Respawn have not missed yet with a game. They've literally never released a game that has been perceived as bad. They've done the Titanfall games, they've done Apex, and they've done the Jedi series. Titanfall is absolutely loved. Apex is one of EA's biggest moneymakers, and the Jedi franchise is also very much loved as well. And they are saying, well, we don't think that that company who's never made a bad game, we don't think that they can make a game based on The Mandalorian. It just isn't going to do well. I'm sorry. Are you fucking stupid? How is that in any way logical to think that a company like Respawn, who are proven to be successful time and time again, that they can't take an IP like Star Wars, which, might I add, they've already fucking done with the Jedi franchise, and they can't turn that into a successful game? I genuinely don't understand a single element of this. It may be one of the stupidest things that I have ever seen in my life from a company this big. I don't understand how companies can get this big and have so many people in those high up positions who are genuinely clueless. They don't understand what they are doing. It's like the equivalent of like a PE teacher trying to teach physics. They just go into the fucking classroom and they don't know what they're talking about. That is the higher ups at EA. They just do not understand what they're doing. All they know is how to run a business and how they do it pretty well, but my goodness, they could do it a lot better if they actually understood the gaming industry. So at the end of the day, it is a bad day to be a Star Wars gaming fan, which is very fucking frustrating, because just this week it's been so good. We're getting the classic Battlefront games back. We're going to be able to play multiplayer. It feels like such a fun time to be a Star Wars fan. Star Wars Outlaws is coming out this year. We think Star Wars Hunters is meant to be launching pretty soon. There are fun Star Wars games on the way, and unfortunately I'm sitting here in only February and my excitement for the year in terms of Star Wars games has essentially been killed off already, even though this game wasn't even coming out this year. It's just kind of killed my hype, at least for right now. I know I'll be excited for Outlaws again once it comes, but right now I just feel so deflated, man, and I feel like so many of you guys in the community probably feel exactly the same. How many times have we all said, oh, I'd fucking love to play a Mandalorian single player Star Wars game? I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people say that, whether it's in my comment section, on Twitter, in live streams, whatever the case may be. And yet EA want to come along and say, we think people are only excited about Jedi and the other owned IPs that we have. That is the most dumb shit that I've ever heard, to be honest. It's actually kind of comical that they think they understand what people want. That is actually like a little bit funny, but it's also so unfunny that it just makes me angry. So that is, I'm going to try and put a cap on it there, because I could honestly go on for like an hour straight about this, but I'm just going to try and end that rant there. I'm keen to hear your thoughts in the comment section, guys. Don't worry, the videos after this are going to be positive again, because we're going back to Battlefront and I'm just kind of done with EA Star Wars games at the moment. So it's not all going to be doom and gloom for me. I will be back making Battlefront content in the lead up to the Classic Collection, but I thought I had to break some of this news to you guys for those who haven't seen it, and even for those of you who have seen it. I'm sure you just wanted to hear some kind of angry, frustrated comments, because it probably feels pretty relevant to you as well. So like I said, leave your thoughts down below. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you always.